Good evening. It is Thursday, 7 o'clock. My name is Eamon Hotep Parker, and welcome to Urban Facts. My host, Ms. Amber L. Parker, won't be with us today. She is at another event. Today, we will be honored by the magnificent principal from, Roxborough High, Miss Kristin Williams Smalley. So I hope I didn't tear her name up. She'll probably get me when I get back on here. So excuse me. So things been happening. We seen the incident with the crossing guard and the youth. I personally put out a PSA in regards to a young man, 4-year-old, that was missing out West Philly. So things are very interesting from the last couple of weeks. But we're not going to, hold you guys up any longer. We're going to jump right into the interview so we can pick Miss Smalley's brain and see what's going to happen. Oh, but also before that, because besides us interviewing her, she is also, I want to give her flowers while she's still here. I shouldn't have said that. That's like something he said at the funeral. She ain't about to pass. So she was our educator of the month. So Kristin Williams Smalley is a proud product of the Philadelphia district of the school district of Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania State University. As a lifelong educator, let me act like I know how to read. Ms. Smalley believes in the untapped greatness of the Black and brown children of Philadelphia, especially those in our neighborhood schools that will be Philadelphia. Entering into her 25th year in education is a milestone that she doesn't take lightly. I'm humbled and honored. This is a quote from her. Every day to be gifted the opportunity to do what I do. I'm supposed to be doing, to do what I'm supposed to be doing. Serving and loving our children on purpose. We here at the Ethel Lee Zachary Foundation honor you, Miss Smalley, for your years of service. And without further ado, here is Miss Kristin Williams Smalley.
Hi, good evening.
How you doing today?
Blessed by the best. Thank you for asking. How about you?
Same one blessing me.
Amen.
By the best.
Yes.
So before we jump into these interviews here, we chose you to be, the educator of the month, and we normally have a student of the month. The reason why we chose you and that student, which was Mason Cooper, is that for one, the students, we feel as though that with some of the chaos that goes on in the classrooms, the kids that's actually trying to get an education are overlooked because sometimes the teachers are too busy almost a half a period trying to calm down somebody else's kid, and the kids that's actually doing the hard work may feel, left out. So we make these kids know that, where we notice what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And, we present these awards and, make them feel appreciated and things of that nature. How the educator of the month came about, it's pretty much the same thing because you guys need hazard pay. But you guys do a tough role, and I think that you guys should at least be honored. It shouldn't be like an end of the semester thing or whatever like that, because some of these teachers go through a lot. It could be very emotional. It could be a great thing. It could be a happy thing, but when you see the conditions of inner city youth, sometimes it could be a mess. And
For
it's not,
sure.
don't get me wrong, because it's not just inner city youth, because this happens in the suburbs also.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, it doesn't happen as often.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, tell us a little bit about your childhood coming up in regards to your education.
Wow, that's a pretty deep question. But as was stated in the quote that you read, I am a product of the Philadelphia School District, from second grade through 12th grade. Um, at the time, the school that I attended was the only K to 12 school in the state of Pennsylvania, Lamberton Elementary slash High School. The high school portion has since closed, and Lamberton Elementary continues to carry on. But I had a great experience in school. Um, because the school was K to 12, I have friends to this day that I met when I was 7 years old. Some of my very best friends came out of being at Lamberton. My husband, we met in grade school as well. So I owe a lot to the school district of Philadelphia. And school was fun. I was the nerd, the typical nerd. I had A's and B's. My mom is a retired school teacher, and my dad is a retired state trooper. So it really wasn't any room for bringing home anything less than um, good grades and good behavior. So I was a nerd for sure. But school was fun. And again, I had some of the relationships that I've had all of my life still carry on to this day. And it was a great experience. It was a unique experience. And I know not everyone has an experience such as I had, but that's part of the reason why I feel compelled to do this work again, because I know what the untapped potential that our schools have and that our babies have. So that's part of the reason why I do this work, so that every child can experience something as special as I did. So that pretty much encapsulates it.
So let me ask you a question. So,
Hmm.
this isn't on the
Hmm.
those questions I sent you. So I have a problem with the statement. Um, what is it? College isn't for everybody. Now,
Hmm.
unfortunately, the statement is true, but it's a certain point in a person's life when it becomes true. Could you elaborate on your feelings in regards to that statement?
So I'm gonna say that from my perspective, every child needs options, right? College is an option, workforce is an option, but children need to be exposed to the breadth and depth of options. And that is what we aim to do at our schools. Um, I think everybody has potential to go to college, but we find that sometimes it's intimidating, right? And sometimes children don't come into their own until they are a little bit older and a little bit more mature to be able to tackle and juggle so much. And sometimes just living under the weight of that expectation is a lot to dissuade children from going on to seek higher education. But there is no shame in going to tech school. There is no shame in going into a civil service type of employment where you can then progress and get more education or gain certifications. So I think there's a path for everybody. It's just helping our babies kind of figure out what their path is and how to best support them to get on that path.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that when we started this foundation, it was the emphasis that education had to be key. I mean, it should be key,
Mhm.
and that they need to have a cultural understanding of who they are as a person. Because
Absolutely.
that's going to build the identity of them as an individual. I taught the children. I taught the children pretty much like every day.
Mhm.
Just regularly in public. Interacting with them in regards to the things that they do. College students, high school students. unfortunately, even the options that you mentioned, without the parental support, these kids don't even have the motivation to move forward with that. You know, even a civil service job.
Mhm.
And the mistake that some parents make, and this mistake is made across the board, is that once these kids enter 12th grade, it's the assumption that they know what they're doing.
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was doing in 12th grade. Um,
Yeah.
when I was in 12th grade, I didn't go on the prom. I was too busy worried about if I was even going to pass. Matter of fact, I overbroke to even get into that school. The counselor from my middle school had to write me a letter for them to just like, hey, please take him. so, so when my kids did the interview process, you know, the high school selection
Mhm.
process, I was like, what's that?
Right.
Because I wasn't familiar with it. Now this is back in like, I guess like the mid '80s or something like that. So I'm not
Mhm.
sure if it was a high school selection thing back then or not. It probably was. Like I said, they invited me in the reverse. Please take him. But
Please.
see, the teacher that I had, Miss Norman, she seen something in me,
Mhm.
and she said that um, you're gonna have to do something with yourself because my alternative would have been Orton Reed. Now you had to know how to fight and survive, and that just wasn't me.
Mhm.
So I thank God for Miss Norman the way where she put me at, in this that opportunity. So coming up, so you said you enjoyed school.
Mhm.
How with that being an impact on your life, you enjoying it? How involved was your parents with that, with your education?
So again, my mother was a teacher. Retired after I was out of high school. Um, so education was always very important in our home. My aunt, her sister, is also a retired teacher. Again, I said my father is a retired state trooper, but my father, for the bulk of his career, remained as a staff sergeant because he trained cadets at the police academy, at the state police academy. So education was always a thing, if you will, for us. And it was expected that I would go and do what I was supposed to do. That was just the expectation. Um, However, I did struggle. I said I was a nerd, but I worked super hard. I believe that I was a child that had an undiagnosed learning disability, but because I was adamant that it was crystal clear that I couldn't bring anything home less than A's and B's, I overcompensated and I did what I had to do to get those grades. Um, I had teachers that definitely pulled me to the side to give me the extra help, to tell me, listen, you need to apply for this program. You need to apply for this program. My college counselor was the one that began the love affair that I have with the Pennsylvania State University to this day. She was like, you're getting out of Philadelphia and you're going to a program. So while I did have some parental support, I was still sheltered because I was an only child. So, that dual edge of we want her to have experiences, but we want to keep her close and keep her safe kind of thing. So that's what I kind of dealt with or experienced growing up. But education and doing what I was supposed to do, which was honor roll, that was what was expected. And if I did have a C, but I was the kid that got the A's and the B's and the threes in behavior because I ran my mouth all the time. That was unacceptable. Um, so just knowing what the standard was and what I was expected to do, that really for me was enough. But for some of my counterparts, it wasn't. Um, and it really, it's each child is individual. No child comes to this earth with its own individual rule book or cookbook,
Mhm.
so to speak, right? If it did, we'd be on fire, right? We'd be moving and grooving. We have to figure it out. We're all works in progress. So that's the kind of work that we try to do at our school, is try to figure the babies out individually and connect with them, so we can kind of see where they are, where their head is, which is a reason why career and technical education is so very important to me, and to many educators in this city, because CTE to me saves lives, gives kids options, like those options I talked about post high school, workforce, continue to go to a tech school and pursue this particular specialty, or go into a 4-year degree. It gives babies options, and that's what they need. And options provide hope. Let me go back and finish that. There's a second part to that. They need options, but options provide them with hope to that they can do, because some of them don't believe that they can.
Well, that's the problem, is that,
Mhm.
see, like I said, whoever told me all you need was a C to pass, I was on it. I was like, oh, see, oh, I can do that.
Uh-huh.
So that was my thing. You know, if I got to C, I was good. But even with that, I struggled with that because, you know, the C was just mediocre. You know, mediocrity. It was no value at the home to say, like, you know, you got to do better than this. Well, let me walk that back. Back in the 80s, some parents back in the inner city, their chastisement of their children that was doing bad in school was, you'll learn when you get older. Like, well, that's not working for me right now.
Right now. Right. Right.
So let me give you this quote by Du Bois. We want to talk about this here.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to read it. Du Bois may be best known for the concept of the talented tenth. He believed that the full citizenship and equal rights for African Americans will be brought about through the efforts of through the efforts of an intellectual elite. For this reason, he was known as an advocate for a broad liberal arts education at the college level. So what do you think about that?
I think on many levels, Du Bois was a genius. And in that statement that you read, while I don't necessarily consider myself a talented 10th, the broad liberal education, I went to school as an agriculture major, Black girl from West Philly. But again, my counselor was like, you're getting out of Philly and you're going to do something for the summer, rather than my mom and dad keep me at home to keep me safe. She was like, let's get out and do something. So I went to Penn State on an agriculture scholarship. It was a means to an end. It was how I was going to get to school and graduate.
Right.
Right. So, but when I got there, agriculture really wasn't what I was interested in. To this day, sunflowers and cows, those are my things. I'm not good with planting flowers. I don't do any of that. And all of my mother marvels, like, you the only person I know with an agriculture degree that don't do nothing agriculturalish. I love cows and I love sunflowers. But it was a means to an end. And when I got there, I was going into ag business because that's what we did. We went into like you aspire to at that time. I'm a graduate class in 1991 from high school. Everybody wanted to be in business because that's what we wanted to do. Business was profitable. I was in a program called Inroads, and Inroads put minority children in corporate situations. So we were geared to business. But when I got there, I found out that I struggled with a lot of mathematical concepts, accounting and such. And that really wasn't where my heart is. And so I went through a myriad of agriculture, because remember, I had to stay in the College of Agriculture to maintain that scholarship, a myriad of agriculture related majors. Then it got to the point that my mom and dad were like, okay, it's time to grad. Like, what we doing? You graduating? It's about that time. So I wound up graduating with a agricultural sciences degree, which was a little bit of everything. My passion, as it turned out, was education. I always knew it. I was the one that would take home teachers editions and have my dolls lined up and be teaching lessons. My mother, my my family will tell you. So eventually I got back to who I was and my purpose, um, what my purpose is. But I was a science teacher. I was a science teacher, and I love anything related to social studies. I was one class short of a double major with sociology.
Right.
So, like when you're talking about a broad brush, very rarely do you meet people that are science and social studies. You're either on the analytical side with math and science, or you're on the the side of English and history and those kinds of things. So I'm kind of like a hodgepodge of things.
Mhm.
And that's okay, right? Because that's who I am, and that is how I was created. So I think that, and it took me, it took me a college education in terms of 4.5 years, um, to understand that I'm full circle back to where I was supposed to be. And I think that I had the space to do that. And I think that our kids sometimes don't. They feel like they have to have the answers right now, and they don't. And how can we help them along the way to try to figure it out? Like you said, at 18, you had no clue what you wanted to do as a graduating senior, right? That is part of my particular thing, is that we have to have a plan. Like, you might not need to know what the rest of your life is going to be at 18 when you're walking across the stage getting your high school diploma, but we got to have a plan for after June 13th when you graduate. Where are we going? What are we doing? So I think that having kids exposed to many different things, which is what we try to do while we have them with us in those 4 years,
Mhm.
does multiply fruit. It is fruitful because something is procured along the way for kids, and they can then go and kind of pursue that and take it a little bit further, if that makes sense.
Right. Um. So with saying what you said, in regards to the parents being, well, in regards to the child not knowing some kids, the direction they're going to face coming out of high school, what advice would you give to parents today to be more involved with their child's education?
Talk to your kids. Talk to your kids. um I am very much, I interact with my children at school like I interact with the two that I gave birth to. I ask the questions that, no, they're like, "Did your mom just ask you that?" Yes, I did. I ask the questions. I try to get at the root. Um, and I think that you have to keep your kids talking. When your kids shut down and they get quiet, that's a problem. Whether the conversation is a good conversation or not so good conversation, if they're talking and they're expressing, then that is a key to you that they're still willing to receive, right? And I think that sometimes, for one, what I know is that once kids graduate from eighth grade and they're in high school, sometimes parents think that they can back off, or that they should back off. Like, oh, they're older, they got it, they can figure it out. That's the time when you need to apply the pressure, so to speak. Keep talking to them, keep guiding them. Because if you don't, there's plenty of other people that will share their opinions readily, and share what they think that they should be doing readily. So that is the biggest thing that I impress upon parents, is to keep talking to your kids, but also listen. Listen. And I've in the past few weeks, we've been in meetings sometimes with parents where the kid can't get a word in edgewise. Um, and also, you can see when interacting sometimes, that the person is listening, but they're not listening to understand. They're listening to formulate what they're trying to say back to you or to
Like
the
a
child,
rebuttal.
right?
Hmm.
And that is also very critical. So we try listen to your kid because they have something to say, and you really would be kind of shocked at some of the things that they would say, or some of the things that they've seen that you have no idea that they've seen. Just keep your kids talking. I think that is critical, and you don't have to have all the answers. I think as parents, sometimes we think that we have to have all the answers, and we are, as human beings, we are forever evolving and growing and learning. When you stop learning, you leave here, right? Every day is an opportunity to learn something. So figuring it out with your child, like they come to us, ideally they come to us for the advice and for the answers, but all the times, again, we don't have them. So as long as I think I'm a very transparent kind of parent, um with both of my kids, and letting them know that I don't have the answers to everything, but I can help you figure it out and we can figure this
Right.
out together. And I think that having that vulnerability as a parent, um, is important, and especially our single moms out there. We carry that mantle, because I was a single mom for a bit. We carry that mantle, that is the world against us and the babies. But it's okay to be vulnerable and let our kids see a side that, um, we feel too, and that we're learning too, and that we're trying to figure it out, and we don't have all the answers. So that would be my number one. Those would be my pieces. A, talk to your children, and B, listen to your children.
Yeah, I definitely would agree that parents have to, you gotta listen to what these children are saying so you can understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
And the number one thing about parenting is that you can't be on this island where you think you know everything.
True.
That you have to be transparent, and you got to be aware. Like when people ask me, "Well, you a good dad?" I'll be like, "I wouldn't know because I'm not the one receiving this experience, so
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you if I. I mean, if you look at me or things on Facebook or you see me with my kids, you can say that. But see, you can go to somebody's house and look nice on the outside,
For sure.
but then on the inside is a mess.
For sure.
So it is how some of these people get misconceived, and they say, well, they take their kids all everywhere. They go to family functions in Disney World, and their kids got the newest did, and that don't mean nothing. That's like a shell.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You ever sometimes I get these brown eggs. This hasn't happened to me before, but it's happened to somebody I've known. It was actual chickens out of one of them, because they organic eggs or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, on the outside, you're not expecting that because it just, it looked like how it's supposed to look.
Right.
So you crack it on the inside, give you a chick or, I mean, hopefully ain't no chick, but it's supposed to be big. But sometimes you get surprised. But you can't, judge the book by its cover. So
Hmm.
that's why parents, you have to, like Miss Smalley said, you got to talk to these kids because they need your wisdom. And if you don't know, this is the problem. Don't be too ashamed to say, "Hey, I need help." That's why she here. I mean, she ain't no counselor for
No,
parents.
for sure.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if you got a question, you say, "Well, hey, how can I help little Johnny excel better in his homework or whatever like that?" If you set up an appointment, but you can't have this outlook like, "I don't need to ask her nothing. Who she thinks she is?" Well, she thinks she's a principal at the school where your kid go at.
Mm.
Well, she don't think that. She know that.
Well, let me tell you, quite frequently, my response is, I am just Jalen and Trey's mom, because that is what I am. I'm a mother first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I mother the children at the school too. Um, and we also have, again, I don't have answers to everything, but we
Mm-hmm.
have a dearth of professionals that can support our children. And that's another thing, that we as parents, it's okay to say we need help. Um, I find, and again, I'm including me in that. It's okay to say that we need help to try to figure out how to assist our baby. It's all about using the resources that we have. And our schools have resources attached to them. While they may not always be financial, there's health, mental health professionals attached to schools. All counselors, behavioral health counselors, social workers. We have a dearth of professionals attached to schools that can support parents to support our children. Because again, when you focus on the children, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's why we come every day. That's why we drive through blizzards to get to school, because the children are coming.
You worried about tomorrow, I see.
Yeah.
So this question was supposed to say, what's the benefits of a parent helping their child? But I want to know, what are the negative effects when the parents don't help the child with their education? What could be them, because sometimes the parents may not be the one that's helping the kids. So,
Mhm. And sometimes that's okay, right? And when I say that's okay, I mean a caring individual in a child's corner is what is necessary. Um, we're very big on at the school trying to ensure that we know every child, right? That every child has a person, so to speak. And that person can range from me to one of the assistant principals, to a counselor, to a teacher, to someone on the building engineering staff, to the kitchen staff. Like an adult that's caring, that's going to correct you and going to tell you what you need to be told. Um, because again, sometimes we as adults are trying to figure ourselves out. And in order for us to be the best parent, we have to take care of ourselves, right? Because that's something that we as a community, mental health and behavioral health and addressing those needs traditionally in our community has not been at the center or the focus or the forefront. It's only been recently that we see those type of supports being put in schools, right? And it's been the pandemic exacerbated everything that was already going on in our communities. So sometimes we have to focus on being healthy adults in order for our children to be healthy. But in the meantime, there's there needs to be somebody in that child's life that is speaking life into that child. And that I volunteer. I volunteer. I give 1,000,001 hugs every day when they come to the office. Part of our morning announcements with "Know you are loved" here. We are unapologetic about loving our kids out loud, because sometimes kids aren't, whatever their circumstances are, that's not something that they frequently hear is "I love you," and they hear it at that building.
yeah, the parents have to be more receptive to their kids. Well, perceptive in letting these kids know that, I love you, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Um, it's see the one downside that I seen when my kids started going to school is that some of the younger teachers started to develop relationships with the kids socially,
Yeah.
um, which I don't agree with, because you're there to teach, you're not there to find out what Tamika and Mike's relationship is going on. And sometimes it happens by mistake because the people at home, which is the parents or the caregivers or whoever it is, isn't interacting with the kids
Hmm.
in regards to saying I love you or talking to them like you said. And this would eliminate some of the behaviors that the kids bring into the schools, because now they're trying to get attention from places that they're not getting it from.
Hmm.
You know, um, we have to, as parents, like you said, be more involved with these kids' lives. And it's good that, you make those announcements at the schools that, this particular institution loves you here,
Hmm.
because that gives that kid like a sense of hope. And nobody is willing to move forward or be motivated if they don't see a purpose in it. A while back, I would say probably like a month back, because me myself, I'm still trying to understand why school isn't like appealing to some kids, you
Mhm.
know, and for other kids, it's like, oh, that's all I want to do. So I asked my daughter, and Amani. So last year she finished the last test, and she technically really had to go. I mean, besides the calendar days that said that, June 13th was the last day. This is the last day. You don't have to, after
Mhm.
this, that's it. So she kept going till June 13th. But like I said, technically, she didn't have to.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I said, well, why are you going? And she said, well, my friends is there and I like school. Now, and when I'm talking to other kids, and I ain't just saying this because they're not my kids, it's
Mhm.
other kids that do feel that same way. They say that I don't like school because the children is there and school just isn't for me. So that could be an array of things. Like I'm not good
Mhm.
at math, I can't read, whatever fits in that hole for that person. So I asked Amani again, like later on, what is it about school that helps you to see, what is it about it that you like? She says that school helps me to see that it's a benefit for me and it's going to pay off for me in the long run. But see, she would never see that if me and her mom didn't instill that in her,
Mhm.
because you have to, like I said, the whole culture aspect. Like my kids know about the boys and Ida B. Wells and Stokey Carmichael when they was like 5 and they would hate it. They were like, well, why we gotta know this stuff? I was like, look, I ain't gonna lie to you. You ain't about to be the next Barack Obama, but it's just good to know.
Mhm.
And they've seen like the struggles that they people had prior to them, like the values of education and things like that. And like you said, civil service jobs out there, it's trade jobs out there. But the thing with that is that you don't decide that at 12th grade. Like you should be asking your kid at like 5, like, hey, what do you want to do? It
Mhm.
might say something weird like I want to be a Spider-Man or a Power Ranger or something like that.
Mhm.
But as this child is being cultivated and developed by the parent, that can go into something else. You might want to be Spider-Man because he saved people. So maybe you might want to be a doctor or a lawyer
Mhm.
or something like
Mhm.
that, a police
For
officer.
sure.
But if you don't ask, then it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
So, I asked my daughters like a couple years ago, I got this group chat with them, like, what do you want to be? The oldest one came back and said, I want to be the first black Supreme Court justice, female Supreme Court justice. The next one said she wanted to be a philanthropist and help people. And Ambrielle said that she wanted to be a director and make movies or whatever like that. So now they got this future, this dream. But if you don't have a dream,
Mhm.
there's no purpose to get to the mountaintop because you don't have a reason to get there.
Mhm.
And the dream has to be initiated by these parents. And it's just like I just said, like, what do you want to do? But parents, if you don't ask that, then like Miss Smalley said, they can be influenced by peers. And now these peers is giving them dreams or, you ain't really got to do your, oh man, I studied for my test the day before. I used to do that too. It never worked out. You know what I mean? So you study because you want to get the information. And the one thing about school that I did learn, because I'm in school now, is that you have to like it.
Mhm.
Because if you don't like it, it's going to be like this irritating process. But you have to learn, you have to be taught how to like it at a small age so you can see the benefit, like Amani said. Um,
But I think part of that is
Go ahead.
making it relevant, right?
Right,
So I think that that is a part of the liking, so to speak, um, that they see the relevance in what they're learning. And that is the ticket right there, that they can see, why am I going into algebra, and why am I learning about functions? Like, how is that directly applicable? Because how many times, like, that's the educator's story. When am I ever going to use this? Right.
Right.
So making situations, or making it situational for students, to really bring it home. Where might you see these things? Making education relevant is what's part of that buy-in. And another thing that I just wanted, because you said you dropped some serious knowledge, right, all through that little talk that you just gave. Um, yeah, we do have kids that come to school that don't like school, but guess what? They there every day, right? Because it's a need that we are able to fulfill, or for them, that they might not have. Whether that's
Right.
to hear the I love you, whether that's the heat, whether that's
Lunch, breakfast.
lunch, breakfast, um, or the snacks, that is a line item on many of our staff's individual personal budgets,
Mhm.
because they keep granola bars. We have a resource closet at the school for toiletries,
Right.
those kinds of things. So we fulfill a need, and when those innate needs are met, then we can start making some progress along, the academic pursuits. So I don't disagree with anything that you said, but I think making it relevant, and making it inviting are two
Oh,
things,
that's the key
two
to
pieces. Yeah.
the inviting part, because with
Mhm.
these kids, I mean, it's like your own kids. You say, well, you gonna wash the dishes. They like, well, what's in it for me? You know what I mean? So, we put this brochure together about higher education, but
Mhm.
I made sure I put a salary chart in there in regards to, the averages, these degrees, what you can get.
Mhm.
So they could say, well, well, it kind of do make sense to get a master's degree versus a doctor's degree in, I don't know, engineering or whatever like that, because it pay more.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, these kids have to see that if I do this, then this will happen. And it's working so far for me, because the parents in part, because it didn't work for me as I was a kid, because I didn't have,
Mhm.
anybody to, that type of support. But for my kids and for other people's kids, because it ain't just mine, when the parents are more involved with them in their education or just life, period,
Mhm. Yeah.
the kids
Period.
will see that, hey, I got this support system. Like, like, hey, if I gotta ask something, I don't necessarily gotta go to Miss Smalley. I can just talk to my mom or whatever like that. But see, the problem with some of the parents is that they might not have a high school diploma. They might have been a teen mom themselves. So
Mhm.
this is the system. So now they kid is in school because that's what you're supposed to do. So now they probably good up to like fifth grade math, and now they got this new math. So
Oh,
they
that
like,
new
well,
math.
yeah, I can't do that or whatever. Or some of the parents probably can't read. But see, if you straightforward and transparent with your kids, like you said, then the respect option in that relationship will never diminish.
Mhm.
You'll have an authoritarian role to where, as though it don't matter if you're not a reader or not, if you don't know the new math or not, that I'm your parent and you respect me on that. Because too many parents going to the schoolhouse or calling the school talking about, well, what should I do about little Johnny? And that's not y'all function. Now that's me saying this. This ain't her saying that.
Mhm.
So parents, you don't take the kids. This ain't daycare where you just dropping them off and then you come back after they got a snack and they probably drew a picture. This is your kid's future.
Mhm.
And even in the engineering field or trade field, like I tell these some people and the parents and these kids, you're not going to escape math or science. I
Yeah.
mean, probably in the engineering, you do
Yeah.
one of those social service jobs or whatever like that, but it may be some math. You need some type of education
Yeah.
to progress forward.
And we also find that a lot of times that when we have parents that are disengaged, or not as engaged. Parents are dealing with what the trauma that they went through when they were in school, right? So
Our
they're
childhood.
like, oh, I got to go up to this school, like I was constantly getting suspended, or that teacher said something to me, or that principal said something.
And it's the
um
same school and the same teacher and principal sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's so again, here we go with this generational cycle breaking thing that is so prevalent in our community. So like we're trying, that's part of the work that we're trying to do, is like, we get it, we understand, but let's put a pin in that, and let's move forward with how we can help you and your child now, because you know it's not just you in this. Like, we have
Right.
a vested interest in your baby and what happens with your baby. So your baby's more than a number to us, and a test score. um you know they really are, believe it or not. So many a nights I've stayed up, pondered just a situation that happened with a child that I just couldn't wrap my head around, and it just bothered me to my core that I was up all night just fretting about what I could do, or what we as a school could do to support this child, and was this child okay. So it definitely is a generational thing that we're trying to break some cycles, and we all know how hard that is.
Well, I definitely want to thank you for coming on. Um, I tell certain people on my board, it's I for y'all, for the principals there. Some of y'all jobs could be very complex, and you don't really have a lot of time to do anything outside of your work. So for you to come on, I definitely appreciate that, because I'm sure you got something else you need to be doing.
You're reading all these texts about us not having school tomorrow. Fingers
Um,
crossed.
but like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can have you again.
Oh, I would love to. I
Definitely.
appreciate the invite. I appreciate the honor. Like, um, at my core, I'm an introvert.
Hmm.
You might not believe that, but at my very core, I'm an introvert. So I always get wound up about experiences such as this. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's about purpose, and that is why I was created, to serve our black and brown babies, particularly the males, for me, and support them in any way that I can. So I really am grateful for the honor and for the opportunity.
No problem. No problem. So we thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
You as well. Be blessed.
We'll definitely be in contact with you so you can receive your award.
Thank you so much.
All right,
All
Christina
right. Take
Williams
care.
Smalley, our educator of the month. Have a wonderful evening.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, bye bye. So that was Christina Williams of Smalley. I said Smalley, I'm sorry. And she was our educator of the month for the month of September. So just a little note here. What Miss Smalley does, the math teacher, the gym teacher, the counselor. I mean, you heard the story about the counselor. Like, this man literally wrote a letter. I used to go to Pierce Middle School. They wrote a letter because I wasn't getting in Central. The only way I would have gotten in Central is if I had to use their bathroom, and like they probably wouldn't even let me in for that. So they literally wrote me a letter because I was good at art, and they said, "Hey, this man to be perfect for your program. Let him in." And I guess he had some kind of clout. They let me in. I graduated Overbrook in 1995. I still wasn't the type of student that I needed to be. But the thing about it was is that I didn't have parental support. That's why I wanted her to come on and talk about the importance of the parents being involved in your child's life. And pay attention to what I said. It's your child. It's not mine. It's not hers. It ain't the math teachers. It's not the counselors. It's your child. When that child graduate, you're gonna be the one excited, just like all the other people I mentioned. However, something go wrong with that child, they end up in the court system, and you know, everybody else is going to be sad too, along with you. So you have to invest in your kids. And just like I said, when I was in middle school, and Miss Norman knew that he not going to make the, ain't no sense in him select the high schools or whatever, because he ain't cut for that. We see that too. Some of these educators like Miss Smalley been in this for like 25 plus years. They can look right at your kid and say they got it if they don't got it. And they don't tell you that because that's not their job to. Their job is to make it so they can cut the mustard. You know what I mean? So they can be the best that they can be. And my job too. It's hard when you can look at a kid and you kind of know where they're going to end up at. I'm talking about 10. I'm talking about 12th grade. Because the environment that these kids are in and the bad parenting that's happening is affecting that child so much that it's going to take almost as double time for this kid to be in school to be removed from the bad experiences that they had. So it's your job. That's why you have to, like I said, we said, talk with your kids at home. Work with your kids on their homework. Shoot, if you ain't finished high school, do it too. It's night schools out here. It's all kinds of things out here. Because your kids want to see you be better than what they see you as. I don't even care if you got a college degree or whatever like that. And if you feel as though you want to go further than that, do that then. I mean, if there's room in your life for that. But if you didn't finish high school and your kid is in high school, go back and do it. Because they want to see you do that. They want to see you achieve and be better than what your current situation may hold. Now, you want to know why they want to see that? Because they see these people at their school. My mom don't know 8th grade algebra, but Mr. Jim do. They want you to be better. You have to want it too. Like I said, I'm in school now. It's not a piece of cake. I enjoy it because it's something that I want to do. I want to help these kids. But it's at times it can be, frustrating. But through training and help and the type of support, I'm here now to be a better me. And when I told my kids I was in school, they was happy for me. And your kids will be happy for you too. They're involved in your kids' education. And don't just say you'll pay for that when you get older. That's like saying you might as well not have said anything because they don't understand that concept. So please be more involved in your children's education. It'll pay off in the long run. There's a lot of kids out here getting sports scholarships, and there's a lot of kids out here getting academic scholarships. Make sure that your kid is the one that's getting the academic scholarship. Because you can get a sports scholarship, go out there on that field or on that court or whatever the environment is, twist the ankle, break a hand, and then that's it. That scholarship out the window because you can't perform off of the skill that you got the scholarship in. You can always perform academically. I mean, not unless you get a brain injury, but probability of that happening is not as likely as it is you spraining your leg or possibly, breaking your ankle. So please be more involved and get your kids' education. You and them will benefit from it. And at this particular time right now, my daughter's in Greece because of her academics. I ain't had nothing to do with it. Her mother ain't had nothing to do with it. Her teachers ain't had nothing to do with it. Amaya had everything to do with it. I mean, we guided her through this process to get her there, as parents. But it's Amaya's work ethic that got her there. The same thing with Amani, the same thing with Ambrielle, the same thing with Terrell, the same thing with Alphonse. The other two ain't my kids. I'm just naming kids now. But these kids, they have the work ethic. And some have made it to be successful, and some are on that way to do that. And I've personally seen kids do great and magnificent things through great parenting. And they want to just be successful. You know what I mean? Your kids look up to you. Whatever you want to be, whatever you are, in your life, sometimes the kid may want to do that too. I asked one young man, how far was he going to go in education? He said, I wanted to get a doctor's degree. He said, I just want to get it because my mom and dad got it. Well, you can do that too. You don't necessarily need a doctor's degree. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a pleasure giving you guys this information, this wisdom, however you take it. And I enjoy coming on here Thursdays. I ain't gonna lie, sometimes I don't feel like it. Sometimes I don't. But somebody's watching these videos and learning something. So I appreciate Miss Smalley again for coming out. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. God bless.